to start with, I think we've done OOP before, but it is basically just stands for coding in a way where everything is an object. So it's a concept. It's nothing to do with Lua or Lua U. It's just a concept that we're going to look at first. So why do we use it? Let's say you have to make a stall claiming system. If you weren't going to use OOP, you'd have to sort of loop through all the stalls, make sure everyone has working buttons, and you'd have to figure out how to program it. And it can get quite messy. So with OOP, you think of everything as an object, and you basically visualize it. So we'd make a class, we'd give it properties, and it's a lot easier for many different systems. So we're going to start with the concept, then we're going to look at how you actually program it. So the first term you need to know is class. A class is a type of thing. So the stall example that we're going to do, it would just be a stall. We then add properties inside of it. So these are basically like values or attributes of a class, so it's like settings. So if we have a stall, then the properties would be stall owner, the price, the model, and a game pass for it. You can see here, this is called UML, Universal Model Language. It is actually a thing outside of Lua. It's for every language, and it's just a way of representing classes. So you put like all of the properties there, and then the type of them there, but you don't really need to know that. The final term that we're going to look at is a method, and that's a function for the class. So for example, if it was a stall, you might have a claim method with the input of player. And then again, with UML, those would go at the bottom like that. So claim, a bit like a function, and then what the name of it is and what the type is. So those are all the terms you need to know, and none of it's new. So this is the kind of code we've been writing so far. Everything such as a part is an object or a class, and then these here would be properties. So part has a transparency, and then finally we have a method such as destroy. So yeah, we're going to look at how we actually program it in a bit. Do you have any questions so far? And then if I don't hear anything, I'll just carry on. Yeah, okay, perfect. So, final term, we've been using like this here as the class or the object, and those are two different things. So a class is just a template. So we'd make the stall class when we're going to do that project. And then when you've got the template, we don't really care about it anymore. We want to make objects of it. So the green stall, the orange stall, the red stall. So don't worry about the code yet because we haven't learnt it, but we have the class that we make, and then we make objects that we actually care about. That's just like a template. So with OOP, it's quite a big topic. There's the easy bits like how to make classes, properties, methods, objects, and then practically using it. This is what we're going to look at. In the next workshop, or if you want to do it in a lesson, if anyone wants to do that, then we could do these bits. We'll just sort of see how it goes. So the first thing we're going to look at is how we make a box class. So we're basically going to have a box. It has a material, and they can hold numbers and values. So let's get a script. To do this, let me check that. Yeah, okay. So to start with, we use tables when we're working with OOP. So let me just zoom in a bit. We're going to do local, and then box equals an empty table. If you've done OOP before, we normally sort of talk about what everything does. We're going to skip over a few of those today. Just whenever you're doing OOP, the next line is that underscore underscore index is itself. So if that's stall, it would be stall underscore underscore index equals stall. Then we have this space here, and this is where our default properties go. So inside the box, we're going to say it has a default value. The default value is 0. We're also going to say it has a default material. The default material can be oak. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make a constructor function, and that's a function that makes a new object. So it's a bit like color3.new, brickcolor.new, instance.new, it's like this. So it's going to be a function, and it's going to be inside of the box table. So we're going to do box dot. You can call it whatever you want, but we always call it new. And there we go. Again, we're just going to do some stuff here that might not make sense, but you do it every single time. So you make a self variable equal to an empty table, and then you set the meta table of self to box. That should be it in terms of things that don't make any sense for now. We could look at it when we get to, that sort of down there. So yeah, you do that, and then at the end you return self. So these bits and these bits, you just always have to do them. When we make a new box, we can ask for certain inputs. So we're going to ask for let's do material, and then value. And if we want to change the default values, so the default properties here, you don't have to, this is already done, but if we're asking for these and we want to save them, then we're going to say self.value becomes the value that was inputted, and self.material becomes the material that was inputted. And yeah, we are sorted. Any questions on anything so far? Again, if I don't hear anything, I'll just carry on. No, okay. So that's sorted. We have box, but we're not really ready to start using it because we don't want to just have that here and then start using it down here. You ideally want to use a module script. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a module script and call it box, and then I'm going to put the script inside of that. We've made box, we've made functions inside of it. We just need to send it back at the end. So we're going to send back box like that. Let me just check what that was. Nothing. Okay, so we're sending back box. Now we're going to start actually using it. So if we get this back up. So yeah, we're going to use it now. So from a script, firstly, we want to load in the box class or the box table. So box is going to be equal to, and we're just going to require that module. So game server storage.box. That loads in everything we've wrote here because we sent back box. So we need to make a red box, for example. So we're going to use the constructor. So the red box is going to, sorry, it's not color, it's material, isn't it? So the oak box can be box.new. And remember, we added as parameters material and value. So we just need to give those arguments. We're going to give it oak and we're going to hold 15. We could make a spruce box, which is box.new, spruce, and 25. Those two objects have been made, so we can start using them. So for example, I'm going to print out the oak box dot value, and then print the spruce's material. You could also change those properties if you wanted to. Let's give it a run, and in the output, we are going to get 15 and then spruce. Any questions so far? Again, I'll just move on if not. Okay, assume we're all good. So we're now going to look at methods. So remember over here, a method is a function for our class. So for example, if we're doing stools, it would be claim. In the box example, we are going to do identify. So it just prints hi, I'm a box, and then maybe double value. So what you have to do is we're going to be messing with the class. So we go over here, and then we go below that function. It could be above, but we're going to go below it. And we add a new function, and it is also inside of box. Remember, there's a few things that might not make sense at the moment, and another one of them is that you use a colon for methods. It's to do with how it accesses self, but just always use a colon. So let's make the identify method. We don't need to ask for anything, but you can if you want to. So if you want to access the current box or the objects that we're working with, you just use the word self. So I'm going to print self dot, I'm going to print hi, I'm a joined with self dot material box with a value of joined with self dot value. And we're also going to have a method called double value. Pretty obvious what that one does. And we're just going to do self.value equals the self.value times 2. So inside of all of these methods, you can access the current box or the current object just with the word self like that. We're going to use them from the script. So we have oak box, we have spruce box. Never use it on the template because it would work, but it would crash because self won't work. Or we would just use a template, which we don't want. And we're going to do oak box, identify, and then spruce box, double value. With spruce box, we gave it 25, so that should now be 50. So let's print spruce box value. And if we give it a run, we have hi and oak box with value of 15, and we do also have 50. That is everything for task 1. Task 2 is going to be doing it with something that's actually useful. Any questions before we carry on? Okay. So yeah, we're going to work on this like miniature project where there's a load of stools and you can claim a stool or you can change the color of one. So we have that over here. To claim one, you just have to click on it, then the little sign thing, and then to change the color, you click on one of these. So let's get started with that. I'm going to delete both of those, and I'm going to make a module because we're making a class, and I'm going to call it stool. So same as always, we start with stool equals an empty table, and that bit that makes no sense for now, where the index is itself. I'm going to do this now so I don't forget, and I'm going to send back stool. Remember, our default values go here, so I'm going to say the owner is false, there is no owner. The click detector. Now, this is going to meant to be like the actual click detector, but obviously we can't do that now because this is just the template. So I'm just going to do false for everything. The color picker, that's meant to be the folder with all the colors in, it's false again. The owner display, that's going to be the text label that you saw, that's false. And the model is also going to be false. Those are all the defaults we're going to need. We're now going to have the constructor function, the one that makes a new object. So remember, it's inside of stall and it's .new. You don't use a colon for this one. We are actually going to ask for the stall model. And when we get to actually using this and making objects, the stall model is going to be one of these over here. So we're going to ask for one of those. Remember that bit that you just always have to do, self is an empty table, set the meta table of self to stall like that. And we always send back self, so we return it. In the middle, you don't have to do anything, but we are going to override these default values, so self.owner, for example, with the data from the stall model. So we can't change the owner because it's still false, but we can change the click detector. And it's going to be stall model, and then if we look at the stall model, it's going to be the owner display dot click detector. So we're going to do dot owner display dot click detector. I'm just going to copy and paste the next two in, like that, same kind of thing. And lastly, the model, because we're going to need access to that later, is the model we were given over here. We are done with that function now. It doesn't actually do anything yet, so we are going to make a function, or a method, sorry, called stall init, which stands for initialize. This is basically going to make it work, and then later on when we use it, we'll run that method. So the first thing we need to handle is claiming and unclaiming. That is done whenever you click the unclaimed thing. So that is just self.click detector, because that's the one inside of owner display click detector. So we're going to get the click detector, we're going to say when the mouse has been clicked, connect function, ask for the player. If we have self.owner, so it's false at the moment, but if we have self.owner, then we know we're going to be unclaiming it. If we don't have self.owner, we know that we want to claim it. So let's write the logic for these. If we're unclaiming it, we want to make sure that the person that clicked is the owner, because only they can unclaim it. So if the player that clicked it is the self.owner, then we're going to unclaim it. We are going to have a method for that later on, so we're just going to run that from here. Normally we would do, like red box, unclaim, that kind of thing. We're just going to do self, because that's the current one. So self, unclaim. So you can call these methods from the methods. Finally, we have claiming. So for claiming, we're just going to do self claim player. And then we'll write both of those in a bit. So that is claiming, unclaiming. That's the first thing that we need to do to make these work. The last bit is making these buttons here work. So the way this works is we have self.colorPicker. And colorPicker is one of these parts here, where they have all the options inside of them. So we can just loop through that. So we're going to have, let's do colors, and it's for every option in self.colorPicker, because that's the folder or the part, get children. I didn't mean for it to be like this, but if you look at these, there is a weld at the bottom, and that's going to break when we loop through it and treat it like a button. So we're going to say, if not the option is a base part, so if it's not a part, then we're going to use continue to skip it. If we didn't skip it, and we're down here, then we want it to work, and we want to make the button actually do its job. So we're going to get the option, and then the click detector inside of it. So remember, we're looping through these. Each of these are options. An option has click detector, so option.click detector. And then mouse click, we're going to connect a function where we ask for which player clicked on it. So I could just randomly walk up behind all of these and it would work. So we need to make sure that it is the owner that clicked it. So we've asked for the player, that hasn't been used anywhere else here. So we're going to say if the player that clicked it is the self.owner, then, and again, we want to change the colors here. And we're not going to worry about it yet. We're just going to use a method that we'll write later. So self set color, and we're going to do the option dot brick color. So what this does again, it loops through all the options. If the option is a base part, or if it's not a base part, it skips it. So it'll skip the world. Otherwise, the option dot click detector, so one of the buttons, when it's clicked on, do this. If the player that clicked is the owner, set color to the option brick color. So that will be one of these parts, and then it's just going to use their color property. So we have used unclaim, claim, and set color, so we just need to make those work now. So let's start with stall unclaim. That doesn't ask for any inputs, and we are just going to set the self.owner to false. We're going to set self.owner display .text to be unclaimed, and finally we're going to put the color back to the default one. So set color to brick color new, really red like that, because that's the default. Again, that doesn't exist yet though, so we're going to get to that in a bit. Next up, we are going to do the claiming logic. If we're claiming, we ask for a player. We know that because over here we gave a player, and all we need to do is set the owner to become that player, and then set the owner display, so that thing there that was unclaimed, we need to set that to the player.name. We don't need to change the colors or anything else. The final method that we're going to write is the set color one that we've been using. So function stall set color, and then we ask for the color like that. So the way this is going to work is it's going to change all of the red into what color we give it. These three parts are inside of the stall.walls. So we're just going to do a loop for every wall in self.model. That's the model, so model.walls. And then get children. And the wall.brick color is going to become that color. In terms of the module and the class, it's now finished. So we need to write the script that uses it. Any questions before we do that? Okay, perfect. Anything pops up, just use the hand thing. So we're going to load in the class that we made. Let me just check. Okay, we're going to load in the class that we made. So it is, let's put it in server storage. It's game server storage.stall. And then what we want to do is we want to loop through every stall and make a new one for it. So we have this stalls model here. So let's just get stalls is workspace.stalls get children. So that's a list of all of them because that's all that's in the model. Could be a folder. So we're going to loop through every model in stalls. And a bit like before, we did, if I get the whiteboard thing, a bit like before how we did box.new, we're going to do stall.new. So the new stall is a stall.new. It's asking for the model, so we give it that one there that we have access to. And remember we made that initialize function that makes it work. We're just going to use that. So new stall gets initialized. Let's give it a test and it should work. So firstly, can I just randomly click them? Nope. If I click on that, it's mine. I can unclaim it as well. I can go over here and I can pick any color I want. And if I unclaim it, it goes back to the default. And they all work because it's like a template and then we made objects inside of it. So yeah, that is basically the finished script. Any questions on anything that we've looked at here?